Welcome to yet another episode of Building Kenya. Today I'm joined by Eoin Flinn, a trailblazing entrepreneur with a knack for turning bold ideas into thriving businesses. One of his most notable business ventures is 254 Brewing Co, a brand that's brewed over 150 unique variations of beer and found ways to weave a taste of Kenya into every sip. This is a conversation about craft, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Before we begin, a quick shout out to NIT Studio, where this video was filmed and produced. To learn more about the amazing work, click the link in the bio. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into today's conversation. Eoin, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm truly excited for this conversation. Yeah, I'm ready. I have my notebook. Everything's ready.
All right.
Yeah. So before we begin, I always love to get the audience to understand a bit about the man behind the brand. So how would you describe yourself? In addition to being a founder, who is Eoin, both in the business world and outside?
Probably a big kid at heart, you know.
Yeah.
I always had a hard time probably working with authority, so I think it made sense that I would do my own thing. And I love having our own little small businesses, and I have two young kids. I love hanging out with them, and I love living in Nairobi. Been here for 13 years now, and I'll stay as long as you guys allow me.
Nice. And you said 13 years. That's a long time. That's a long time. What made you make the decision to come to Kenya and start 254 Brewing Co?
Mm-hmm. Well, I originally came to Kenya with a company called Burn Manufacturing, and they were based out of Seattle, and they had advertised for looking for somebody that could help start a factory in Nairobi. And so I was really excited about that opportunity, and I managed to get that chance. And that's what brought me out here back in 2012.
Mm-hmm. And what's the best thing you love about Nairobi?
I think the energy of the city, you know, it has everything. You've got nice neighborhoods, and you cross the street and you're in a slum. You cross the street again and you're in a forest or a national park. So it's kind of, Nairobi to me, it's like a patchwork quilt that has a bit of everything, and everyone's kind of mashed in together and running around, getting stuck in traffic. And there's a lot of startups going on here, a lot of tech stuff, a lot of F&B stuff, which is my area. All kinds of new restaurants popping up every year. Every month there's something new. People keep trying stuff. Everybody's got 3 side hustles. So I love it. It's when I go back home, it's very sleepy by comparison.
And where's home?
Home is in Ireland, although I have been gone for over 20 years, I guess. So.
Nice. Nairobi is a really vibrant city. I love it. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a bit about 254 Brewing Co. It's a craft beer brand. Mm-hmm. And so for the audience who maybe they don't really understand what craft beer is, could you please explain to us what is craft beer and what's the difference between that and regular beer?
Mm-hmm. Well, people debate, you know, what's the definition of craft beer, but to us, it means making fresh beer. So our beer is unpasteurized, unfiltered. It contains no additives or preservatives. So it's in the most natural state that we can make it. So a lot of big commercial beers nowadays use a lot of adjuncts, you know, so a lot of mass market beers, now they're removing a lot of, or even all of the barley and just making them out of like cornstarch or corn syrup or rice. And so then you lose, if you make beer like that, you won't get the golden color and the nice foamy head on the beer. So in order to present those things, you'll need to add now coloring agents, foaming agents, And you end up with something that it's quite a denatured product. And I just found personally, as I was getting into my old age, that I used to drink commercial beer, and I just started feeling like very bloated. I'd finish like one beer, I couldn't, start the second one. I was feeling too full. And then I discovered, this thing called craft beer, which is basically, it's just natural beer without all of this stuff. And I found that I can continue drinking beer after all. So thought we should start some of this in Kenya.
Okay, nice. And was there a gap you saw in the Kenyan market? Was there not enough craft beer companies?
Well, yeah, when we started 254, there was probably 3 craft beer companies until then, which was Big Five, and they were making it on Gong Road back in the day. Sierra, also, both of those companies have been around for like 15 years now, I want to say. And then Bila Shaka had just started, so we weren't the first ones to be doing it, but we thought we would. I think we were the first ones who kind of started focusing on making like such a wide variety of beers. We make a new beer every week, making a lot of really hoppy beers or Belgian beers and pushing the envelope a little bit. And also I think we were the first ones to make the beer completely fresh, unfiltered, unpasteurized. So we'd like to think we moved the needle a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that you are making a new beer every week. And 254 Brewing Co., you've made more than 150 unique variations, and especially Muratatu, which is your locally inspired brew. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really stood out. So how does Kenyan culture influence the kind of beers you create?
Well, like Muratatu, so every week we put out a new beer, and these are small brews that we make, which are about 200 liters, so about 6 kegs, and usually it takes about 6 weeks to finish those seasonals. But one day we just put out this Belgian triple, which was 3 times, stronger than usual. And in this with this Belgian yeast, this Belgian style of beer, and our brewery is in Kikuyu, and it just became an overnight sensation, and everybody was loving this beer, and they said this thing tastes like Muratina. So that's how we ended up with Muratatu, which a triple being times 3, so like Muratatu, but then it tastes like Muratina, so we call it Muratatu. And for me, that kind of like kicked off a little bit of a learning, expedition. I went kind of down the rabbit hole learning about Muratina because I didn't know much about it until that point, and then learning about other traditional Kenyan beers like Busa, Nazi. There's about 50 different traditional beers in Kenya. And from what from my vantage point, it seems that they're very under-celebrated as compared to, these like commercial beers, foreign beers, and so on. And so I just found it really interesting, and I've been learning more and more since then about all these traditional beers and why, like today, basically we still don't have any traditional brewers who've gotten a full license, KEBS, and can sell into supermarkets and modern trade around Nairobi and stuff like that. So, I've been working with CAM this year, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and I chair the alcohol committee there. And so we've been speaking with, many government agencies about the legislative process, the regulations around alcohol. It's always kind of controversial in Kenya. But we're kind of optimistic that the government should be actually providing more of a roadmap for traditional Kenyan brewers to develop their businesses. Usually now they're able to brew, but then now they can't really grow their business, and they're not allowed to sell in retail and hotels and restaurants. There's a huge opportunity, the way I see it, for Kenya to create a lot of jobs through traditional brewing. And all of the traditional beers, they use Kenyan agricultural products, so they can really support the economy. And, Kenya has a major issues now with like a very high consumption of cheap spirits, the blended ethanol products that are kind of creating a lot of social problems in Kenya. And to me, there's a great, solution there with, developing and commercializing the traditional Kenyan beers, which are much more natural and healthy for the consumer as compared to blended ethanol.
Speaking of consumers, I read a very interesting statistic. According to global data, Kenya's beer and cider market was valued at 379.4 billion Kenyan shillings in 2023 and is projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of more than 4% between 2024 and 2029. So from this, it's really evident that the beer market in Kenya is really growing. And so in your personal opinion, how have you seen Kenyans start to embrace and respond to craft beer? And how do you see those preferences evolving? Especially for, Kenya is a very youthful population. People my age, how do you see them responding to craft beer?
I think it's been like a little bit of a slow burn, because there was very little variety in the market for a long time. And I think Kenyans are a little bit skeptical, so they see something new, and there's a little bit of kind of question marks in the beginning, and then the longer that you remain in the market, and then Kenyans are like, okay, this thing is still here. I'll give it a try, So we see it opening up slowly, but I think the market, regards to your statistics there, kind of elephant in the room with the alcohol market in Kenya is that between 50 and 60% of the alcohol sold in Kenya is black market or illicit, and so that's a major issue. And then also that spirit consumption is very high compared to beer consumption. So beer has actually been going down over the last number of years as consumers have been moving to spirits, because the tax in Kenya effectively taxes beer, wine, and cider at about a little bit more than double the rate that it taxes spirits. So the impact of that is that for lower income Kenyans, that people move to spirits. Spirits are because of that, the tax situation, spirits are a cheaper way to get high. And so, especially now in the lower income brackets and the youth, there's been a big shift to spirits. So that's another reason why, when we work with the government, we try to look at policies that can drive people to lower ABV products, such as beer, also wine, cider, but like in particular, all the traditional Kenyan beers, So there could be like a huge kind of craft beer revolution in Kenya simply through the growth of the existing indigenous traditional beers,
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Now, I want us to talk a bit about challenges, because nothing comes easy. If there's something I've learned about starting something, is there's going to be challenges. They're going to be there. And so I know starting a craft beer company in Kenya has not been easy. So if you could just touch a bit about the difficulties you faced.
I think that, as you say, you'll always have challenges. And in terms of entrepreneurship, or, for your listeners, in terms of if they are asking if they should be an entrepreneur or go down that journey, I always say it's that you enjoy the challenges. So if it might be painful, but you enjoy that pain, So some people like going to the gym every morning. For me, that would be very painful. But some people love that pain, and they go to the gym every day, and then they get really fit from doing what they're doing. So it's kind of similar with business. If you enjoy that pain, it's because the pain is unavoidable. You're going to have many challenges, and especially in Kenya, the climate is quite difficult. I think even globally now it's hard all over the place, but in Kenya it's very difficult. It's hard for new businesses to get a foothold, make money. A lot of industries are quite monopolized. The taxes are very high. The regulations are very high. In our case, for beer, we had to get 12 different government departments have a license over beer. So it took about 2 years to get licensed. And
2 years, oh Lord,
that's a long time. And, you have to invest in the beginning of that process. You can't get all the licenses without having the equipment that they come and inspect and the beer that comes off of that equipment. So you need to do all that investment. In our case, 2 years before we were able to see any revenues, which makes it a challenge. And the investment climate is also difficult. You couldn't run a business like that with a bank loan. You need to be able to find VC investors that want to take a little bit more risk and have a long-term perspective. And I think that for Kenyans, that's very difficult. There's not a lot of investors in the space, that are investing in Kenyan entrepreneurs. So it's very challenging for any young Kenyan who's trying to be an entrepreneur. But I would say that if you enjoy the pain of starting that business, whatever you're thinking about starting, if that's your dream and you just know that that's what you want to do, then you're going to enjoy the pain. And the great thing about entrepreneurship is everything is ultimately in your control, even though as difficult as it may be. When you get a job, you're always, at the mercy of your boss, who might fire you because he's, thinks that you're coming for his job, or something that might be out of your control. But when it's your business, in the end of the day, everything's in your control. If people aren't buying your product, you can change your product. You can modify your product. You always have another option. You can always find a way through. So I think that's what's attractive about it to me. And I think, so many Kenyans are entrepreneurs because there isn't enough jobs in the economy. So something like, 80% of Kenyans are self-employed, something like that. So Kenyans are very naturally entrepreneurial. And it's just a case of, can you have more businesses? Entrepreneurs are already there. Can you have more businesses that can explode, can break through, and not be stuck at, a kind of mama mbogo level of where they're self-employed, but they're still really have to work 7 days a week to get that income.
Yeah, I love that analogy you gave of pain in business. But I think it's always worth it to push yourself in business, even though there's challenges. Don't you think it's so rewarding, what you get from being an entrepreneur?
I do personally, but maybe it's not for everybody. Yeah. So it's because, some people really enjoy, I used to enjoy when I had a job, how much you can just check out on the weekend, and you don't have to think about work at all until Monday morning. But when your business is your baby, you're always thinking about it. And so it's just a case of, if it's for everybody, getting up and going to the gym every morning is not for me, but for some people,
Yeah.
they love it,
Yeah. Now let's talk about how important it is to have a loyal customer base in such a competitive market. How do you ensure that you build that loyalty with your customers?
That's a great question. Well, we try. When you're coming into a new market and you're competing with large established brands that have been in the market for decades or 100 years, I think that you need to make something that's like very notably different on the product side. So we always try to make our beer notably different, and not just another lager, and I think that we have some degree of loyalty through the connection that people have with the product, that they really love, whether it's Sandrap or Niaje or Muratatu or another beer. People have a strong affinity with the product. We always try to get people to come to the brewery as much as possible. We have a bar and restaurant at the brewery in Kikuyu, and we give tours. And I think when people come in and they see the beer being made, they see the kind of the hustle and bustle in the factory, and people working hard to get great beer out the door every day. It definitely builds connection and rapport with customers.
That's so good. I love that, because I'm personally a very loyal consumer. Like, once I like a product, I'm loyal to it 100%. And I like that you put in that personal touch. It really makes a difference. Now, give us the biggest lesson you've learned about being an entrepreneur here in Kenya. If you could say one lesson, what would that be?
I think the biggest lesson for me in entrepreneurship is just persistence. You just have to keep on going. It's almost never going to be quick and easy. So yeah, I think just don't give up. I could probably boil all the lessons down to that one, just keep going.
Were you always someone who was this persistent, like all throughout your life? Or how did you become someone has the character of persistency?
Yeah, I was probably pretty stubborn growing up. You'd have to ask my mother. But I think she'd probably say Owen was pretty stubborn. I always like projects. I didn't expect to be doing the same project for so long. In the case of 254, I think it's coming on 8 years now. And, we still have quite a ways to go. So this has become like my major project in my life. Used to like challenges, like 3 or 4 year challenges, but I always like to get something to the finish line of whatever it is. Yeah.
Were you always that persistent? Where can you attribute your persistency to?
Yeah, I think I've always been pretty stubborn and pretty results oriented. And so I always just like to finish things, get things over the line, whatever the line may be. So I think it's been in my DNA.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And how about criticisms? How do you face criticisms and rejection? Because this comes with anything really in life. There's always criticisms and rejections. It's something I'm personally working on. I don't think I take criticism that well, but I'm working on it. So how do you handle that?
Well, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a boss to criticize you. Your boss is the consumer. So you're very tuned in and focused on what the customer is saying about your product, how the customer feels. And if the customer is critical, you have to listen to that. If the customer is happy, you won't be as affected by external criticism because it's a little bit of noise. It doesn't actually impact you. But, failure in general for me, is always welcomed. And because that's when I'm learning something, when I've got, something has failed, if I'm getting criticized about something, why did this happen? How did we get in this situation? What's the next course of action? What can we change to make ourselves better? So anything that gives us a chance to make ourselves better, we'll welcome that. We'll try to kind of have an unemotional response to criticism and just analyze, should I take this on board, or is this noise, and then it feels a bit more empowering than just feeling bad about somebody criticizing you.
Yeah, it's true. It's always good to take that positive criticism and try and change. And it's so funny how failure is literally the key to success. When I first started, I would try to avoid failure as much as possible, but I'm seeing that failure is literally what makes you succeed, So I like that you see it in that lens. That's really good. What about your biggest support system? Who cheers you on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, 254 is kind of founded, or all of our investment has come from, small investors like friends and family. So we have a big network of investors that has believed in us, believed in me from the beginning, and that gives me a lot of encouragement, energy I take from that. I think we have a great team, across the board. We have over 100 people now. When I look around at the team that we have, from the guys brewing the beer to the engineers running, keeping all the machinery going, the finance team and the HR and the sales team and the bar teams. And, I feel really in good hands that we have people that are working hard, have really high integrity, can be, left to their own devices to run their area of the company. And, that makes me feel very supported in the sense that the team is on top of things, and they also care about the result for the company. They don't want to overspend, or, they don't want our sales to go down. So I feel very supported in every direction I look, really. My wife is very supportive. My kids are very supportive. So I'm, not lacking in support.
That's awesome. That's amazing that you have such a big support system. And I really like that you talk about your team so nicely. That's really good. Now, tell us about the vision you have for 254 Brewing. Where do you see the company going in the next 5-10 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just going to continue growing on the path that we've been on. We hope to make our beer more widely accessible. We will hopefully open 1 or 2 new bars, maybe slightly different concepts, ambience, environment, and so on, that we build around those. We'll hopefully bring out a canning line early next year. So we'll have some products in cans, which should be exciting. Yeah. We're going to try and make those a little bit more shelf stable so that they'll be able to become more available outside of Nairobi and more available in supermarkets and not need to be refrigerated 100% of the time, because the beer we make at the moment is 100% cold chain. It's always kept cold from leaving the brewery until it gets to the customer, and that has been a bit limiting. So we're hoping to develop a couple of more slightly mass market products, but still keeping the product as natural as we want it to be. And so those are kind of the challenges coming up around the corner for next year. It's still the number one challenge is just to not die, you know?
Yeah.
It's mainly what we get out of bed every morning to do, yeah.
Awesome. And as a parting shot, the last question I have for you is the advice you would give someone who is maybe scared to start something, whatever that may be, or maybe they don't think that they're good enough, or, you know, they're having a lot of second thoughts. What advice would you give such a person who's listening to this podcast?
Well, for me, the biggest probably mistake I made before starting 254 was really not doing enough research. You know, I didn't really analyze the market in great detail or look at the breakdown of like the costs, the tax, all of that stuff. So I kind of went in like very headstrong. I just had the mentality that we're lacking in choice in the beer segment here. So people will just automatically respond positively when we give them more choice. But, you know, I would have been in better shape if I would have done probably more market research on like what exactly people wanted, you know, what they were willing to pay and so on. So I think that the main advice of never giving up is built on the fundamental assumption that you've got a good idea to begin with, you know? So if you haven't started something, do more research first and foremost. And it's a huge opportunity. Once you're up and running and you're busy every day with a million things, you don't have much ability to change course or change the fundamental product or value proposition of the business. So if you're in that stage where you have an idea, you're thinking about it, try to market test that idea, not just with your family, your friends, you know, people that will tell you give you that criticism, give you those areas that need to be improved, because you haven't thought of a perfect idea off the top of your head. No matter how great it is, it's flawed. And the more you can fine-tune it before you get started, then you've got something that will fundamentally eventually work, and then you can go into never give up mode.
That's some solid advice. I'm taking that home. Thank you. Yeah. I've learned so much. You know, I'm a marketer by profession, so it's always interested me about the alcoholic industry in Kenya, because it's really booming right now. So I've learned a lot about craft beer that I didn't know. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So guys, that was Eoin Flinn on an episode of Building Kenya. If you liked this story or if it inspired you, click the subscribe button and share it with someone who would love to hear it. This is Building Kenya. Stay tuned for more stories from across the country.